Welcome back, everyone, and now we're going to start discussing our classes. So, with this video, we are going to look at the Cleric. Now, Cleric has a lot of subclasses, so we're only going to look at the two that I think will make it into the game. So with that, sit back, relax, and enjoy as we delve into the So you might be wondering, what makes a cleric? Why would you want to play this class? And to put it simply, clerics are going to be your go-to healers in the game. Doesn't mean that other classes can't heal. It's just this is one of the main things that the cleric does. Now, things to know about them. They generally are warriors as well. This is why some of the subclasses get extra armor or weapon proficiencies, and they are divine agents of a god. So we'll see this when we talk about our companions. And let's just look at some of the things that the cleric's going to get. Now, what we've been told is, as far as early access goes, we're only going to make it here to level 4. And we don't know a definite maximum level for the game as of yet, but we know it's going to at least be level 10. So we've got a lot of stuff that we can gain. But we're going to focus mostly on these 4 levels here that you'll get through the game, and we'll just pick out some of these big abilities that you'll get for the future. Now, some things to know is you're going to have a D8 for your hit die. And the big important thing for this is your first level hit points. Your first level is always going to be maximum for whatever the hit die is, plus your con modifier. And then they may choose to roll this, but if they go for the average route, this number here in parentheses is always what the average is for your die, and you still get your con modifier. Now, all clerics, doesn't matter your subclass, are going to get light and medium armor with shields and simple weapons. This goes back to where I was discussing races. Dwarves work well here because they'll give you some extra weapon proficiencies. And they get wisdom and charisma saving throw. And all classes are going to give you a selection of skills that you'll get to pick a certain number from. So for clerics, you're picking up 2. And then you have an equipment kit. And if you look here, a warhammer, if proficient, is one of your choices. This is one of those things where, like I said, being a dwarf kind of helps out in the design of a cleric, because dwarves get warhammer proficiency. Now, how they say chainmail if proficient, chainmail is heavy armor, and this will get to with some of our subclasses. So, spellcasting, as I've said before, is going to be wisdom based. And this is just explaining how you prepare your spells as a cleric, since a cleric always knows all spells available to their class at their level. They just choose each long rest which ones they want to have prepared to be able to use. So, this doesn't mean, like back in the day, oh, I want to be able to cast Cure Wounds once, therefore I only prepare Cure Wounds once. No. The way spellcasting is now, you pick all the spells that you possibly could want to cast. And then when it's time for you to cast a spell, you can cast any spell that you have prepared. So, if I have 3 first level spell slots, and I have Cure Wounds and Guiding Bolt prepared, I can either cast Cure Wounds 3 times, Guiding Bolt 3 times, or a mix and match somewhere in between. I don't have to just sit there and prepare 3 castings of Cure Wounds because that's what I want. And that's one of the nice things about 5th edition, and one of the things that'll be nice for Larian to reproduce in this game. Now, once again, as I said, this is your calculation for breaking down your spell save DC, like I said, wisdom modifier, and your attack modifier for hitting with your spells. The ritual casting feature, I do not think we'll see much of in early access. I think that's going to be something that we can expect later on down the road. And the spellcasting focus, I believe they're going to be using a lot of. So this will just be some form of holy symbol that will be represented in your gear. Now, domains are the subclasses for clerics, and we'll get back to them after we run through our basics of the class. Channel Divinity is going to be your bread and butter ability, mainly for the fact that you can turn undead. And then later, after we've left early access, you can do destroy undead with that to get rid of pesky lower level undead like zombies and skeletons. Every class at 4th level gets an ability score improvement. Until we get access to feats, this will just be increasing your basic ability scores. But when we get feats, you can choose to take one of them instead of an ability score improvement. And now I'm moving on to some of your abilities that you'll get after early access. And the only one that clerics get that isn't domain locked is going to be Divine Intervention. As well as another ability score improvement at 8th. But Divine Intervention here is going to be a difficult one for them to incorporate into the game, as it works similar to a wish. You ask for aid from your god and specify what sort of aid you want, and then you roll to see if you're successful. But the roll here isn't a D20 roll, it's a D100 roll that you have to roll equal to or lower than your level. And you can only do it once per 7 days successfully. So, let's go ahead and start looking at our subclasses. So the first one I expect us to see is Life Domain, since this is the most basic subclass. This is your healing focused domain. Now, where they talk about domain spells, these are spells you don't have to prepare if you're that level or higher. They're always prepared for you because they are the spells that your domain is best at. And as you see here, Cure Wounds. Like I said, this is the healing one. So, your bonus proficiency here that you get at 1st level is Heavy Armor. Going back to how we were talking about Chainmail if you're proficient, this cleric can wear the Chainmail. And then Disciple of Life further emphasizes that benefit of being good at healing. They heal an additional 2 plus the spell level anytime they cast a spell that heals. Their alternate channel divinity is another form of healing, but it cannot bring people up above half their maximum hit points. And it's the amount you heal is 5 times whatever your cleric level is. And that's going to be the ones that we're going to have in early access. Moving forward, they will get Blessed Healer, which is when they heal someone else, they heal as well. And then they will also get access to Divine Strike, which makes their melee attacks a little bit stronger, since this is a cleric that wants to be up front in the action. Now, the other subclass that I'm expecting to see is going to be the Trickery Domain, just because Shar is the god of our companion, and Shar works pretty well with the Trickery Domain. So, Trickery is deceitful, think Loki. And you got Charm Person and Disguise Self, Mirror Image. Like, these are all spells that emphasize that I am being a trickster. Now, the Blessing of the Trickster allows them to help other people be good at stealth checks. and then their channel divinity lets them create a duplicate of their self. And this is going to be an interesting one to see Larian invoke, because this duplicate, all it's there for is distractions. It cannot actually perform anything, but it looks like a perfect duplicate of yourself. Moving forward into the later levels, they do get Cloak of Shadows, which lets them use their channel divinity to go invisible, and that'll be really good and handy, as well as Divine Strike again, so that they have that extra damage in melee. But this one is poison damage, so that could be a little bit tricky, because as you move into those higher level events, a lot more creatures become immune or even resistant to poison. Look at dwarves, for example. They naturally resist poison, and pretty much every undead is immune to it. So let's look at some of our go-to spells that you can expect people to be using as Cleric in early access. We're going to start with a few of the cantrips. Light here is going to be great for any character class that doesn't have, character race that doesn't have dark vision. Because this makes it where you're not going to have to carry around a torch. You can just cast light on something and it will shed a light. Sacred Flame is going to be one of your go-to damage sources. It's dexterity saving throw against radiant damage. So if you want to be more of a casting form of Cleric, not so much of a combat Cleric, this will be your bread and butter spell. Because you can't just use your leveled spells on every single attack in combat. So you'll run out of them too quickly. That's why you have the cantrips. And Spare the Dying is going to be your, what do I do? I am in super trouble, let's hit the emergency button. Because say you've used up all your spell slots, but you need to stop that companion from dying. That's the purpose of Spare the Dying. It is going to make them stable, they no longer make death saves, and this will keep them in the fight. At least in a unconscious sense. Now, as we said before, you've got Cure Wounds for healing. It's a D8 plus your casting modifier, so in this case, Wisdom. And you get to roll additional dice when you upcast it. This is the most basic healing spell in the game. The only downside of it is the fact that you have to be adjacent to the person to touch them to do it. But we have a solution for that coming up in one of the future spells. Guiding Bolt is one of your good go-to damage spells at low levels, and it even scales up well into the higher levels. It's a nice, wonderful range at that 120 feet, and it does 4d6 of radiant damage on a hit. But the most important thing about it is that the next attack until the end of your next turn against that target gets advantage to hit, making it more likely to hit that target and get rid of it. Now, Healing Word is the other healing spell I was talking about. It doesn't do as much healing with only a D4, but it has the benefit of being at a range of 60 feet, and the huge benefit of being a bonus action to cast, so that you could heal and still do something else in your turn. This is the best emergency heal in the game, because it just quickly gets someone back up without upsetting the pace of what you had to do. Inflict Wounds is your other great low-level damage spell, but it does require you to be adjacent to the person. Yet it does a huge amount of 3d10 necrotic on a hit, and scales amazingly well with an additional d10 for every level up cast. And this is one of the best damage spells in the game since it scales so well. And lastly, we're going to look at one of your second level spells. And this spell here is one of the go-to spells for clerics for damage, simply because it lasts for a minute. And it's Spiritual Weapon. It creates a weapon of force that moves around the battlefield and attacks your enemies. It uses your to hit modifier and does a d8 plus your spellcasting ability as damage. Scales decently well as it does an additional d8 for every 2 slots that you increase by. But the big benefit here is it's a bonus action to cast and it's a bonus action to use its effect every turn. So you can be just doing this additional damage while still maintaining your standard offense that you were doing throughout your normal turns. And that there is the basics of the Cleric. As we move forward and start getting additional domains, some of the ones we're likely to see first are going to be the Light Domain, the Nature Domain, and the Tempest Domain. These were some of the original go-to ones. And the Tempest is one of the ones I expect to see early. Also the War Domain, because that is your true fighter version of the Cleric. But Light and Nature are going to be some of our more casting oriented, even though Nature has abilities that makes it want to be in combat. So, we'll be back later with our next class. I hope you enjoyed our delve into the Cleric. Thanks for